Travelers Whiskey is looking to do more partnerships in 2025, which could lead to Junior Motorsports making more starts in the NASCAR Cup Series, and Denny Hamlin's picked up a major sponsor for the remainder of 2025. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got some NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed for today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just show them those really quickly. We're first going to take a look at a ton of paint schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple days. Let's go ahead and just show them straight into them. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Parker Red/Slash 2025 Prime Bike scheme that we'll see this weekend at Homestead. I really love this paint scheme. The colors look really good. The numbers in a really good position. The colors look great. I love the TikTok logo as well. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Homestead. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Spencer Boyd's 2025 Epoxy Depot scheme that we'll see this weekend at Homestead. Scheme's okay in my opinion, but it's pretty cool to see Spencer Boyd's picked up some new sponsorship for the weekend. The scheme looks okay. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Brandon Jones' 2025 Kingsford scheme that we'll see this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. This is going to be the first time that Kingsford sponsored NASCAR, I believe, since 2018, I'm pretty sure. And I think this car looks really good. I love the colors on it, and it's really exciting to see Kingsford back in the sport for the first time in quite some time. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ryan Ellis's 2025 Classic Collision scheme that we'll see this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. I love the look of this. I like the Miami Vice look. It looks really awesome, and I think it's going to be a good looking scheme out on the racetrack this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Dean Thompson's 2025 Assured Partner scheme that we'll see this weekend at Homestead. Scheme looks okay in my opinion. It's good to see a new partner working up with the team in 2025. I think the scheme is okay, but it's not great. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Andres Perez de Lora's updated 2025 Telkel scheme that we'll see this Friday at Homestead. I like this scheme a lot. I think it's even better than the original one that was released this year. I think it looks really good. Love the colors overall. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Homestead. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Chris Buescher's 2025 Farm Ridge scheme that we'll see this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. I believe this will be the first time that Farm Ridge has sponsored a NASCAR Cup car, I'm pretty sure. I think the scheme's okay. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination. It's part of the Kroger branding stuff. I think it's an okay scheme, but it's not my favorite paint scheme. We'll see how we can do in this car, though. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Jeremy Clements' 2025 Kevin Whitaker scheme that we'll see next weekend at Martinsville. I love the look of this. It's got a hot dog look. It's got the iconic Martinsville hot dog look to it. It looks really awesome, and I'm excited to see this car on the racetrack at Martinsville. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Cole Custer's 2025 Autodesk scheme that was seen 2 races in 2025. It looks very similar to the one he had in Xfinity and looks very similar to the ones that were, of course, at Stewart Haas Racing a couple years ago. It's not really that great, but it's not a bad overall looking scheme. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s 2025 Better scheme that we'll see this weekend at Homestead. This, I believe, will be the first time that Better has sponsored a Cup driver in quite some time. I do think the car looks okay, but it's not the most spectacular paint scheme I've ever seen, but it's good to see a new sponsor in the sport. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Josh Berry's 2025 Dex Imaging scheme that I believe we're going to see in 3 or 4 Cup races in 2025. I got to be honest, this one looks a lot better than the one that Harris Suburban has had the last couple of years. It kind of looks like the Wood Brothers car a little bit, the original ones. I think it does look pretty good. The white number looks great, and the colors match perfectly on it. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Homestead. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Sheldon Creed's 2025 Road Ranger Redcon scheme that we'll see this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. I like this car a lot. I love the colors on it. I like the look they're going for this weekend. I think it's going to be a good, nice looking car out on the racetrack. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ty Dillon's 2025 Seabass scheme that we'll see this weekend at Homestead. It kind of looks very similar to the Travelers Whiskey car that Junior Motorsports had, to be honest, which that one looked really good. I think this one also looks solid, and it's my favorite Seabass scheme we've seen up to this point. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ryan Blaney's 2025 Dent Wizard scheme that we'll see this weekend at Homestead. This is a different looking Dent Wizard scheme that we've seen in the past. I think the colors actually work really well on this one. It's a nice looking car. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the truck race at Lime Rock as they have a title sponsor revealed for the event. It is going to be called the La Uena 150. Laguna, of course, sponsored the Xfinity Series race this past weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and they, of course, have sponsored multiple Truck Series races in the past, and also, of course, have partnership with Tyler Ankrum over the course of the last couple of years. I think it's a nice title sponsor for the event. It's big that they're working to be in the sport a lot more, and I think it's a good see that Laguna will be sponsoring the Truck Series race at Lime Rock in June when we get to the Atlanta weekend. I think it's nice to see them working in the sport a little bit more closely. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Bradley Chubb. As it was announced on Monday that Bradley Chubb will give the command for the NASCAR Cup Series race at Homestead Miami Speedway. Bradley Chubb, for those who don't know, is currently one of the linebackers for the Miami Dolphins, is in a Toots, has made the Pro Bowl twice. Bradley Chubb has been in the NFL, I believe, for the last 5 or 6 years, and he's had a little bit of success with a team that's been up and down in the past. But he's had a lot of success, and it makes a lot of sense to bring someone and consider him. We are headed to Homestead Miami Speedway this weekend. It makes a lot of sense to bring someone in who does have some experience being in the Homestead area. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see him be part of a sport in some way, shape, or form, and glad to see he'll get the opportunity to give the command this weekend at Homestead Miami. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Tony Mayoff. As it was announced on Monday, reported by Adam Stern, that the Baltimore Orioles have hired former Junior Motorsports brand executive Tony Mayoff as VP of Corporate Partnerships. Tony Mayoff for many, many years had been with Junior Motorsports, I believe from about the time that the organization started, only up to a couple years ago, I believe like 2021 or 2022. They're bringing someone in who's really going to be able to help up on the corporate side of things. I don't think the Baltimore Orioles are really struggling for funding by any stretch of the imagination, but the funding they could get could really help pick up some free agents for the organization because Baltimore has been very inconsistent and mediocre in recent years, and they haven't been the team that's been as successful in recent years as well. Bringing someone who can really help the organization, I think that's a really massive and big deal for the team. So I think it's a really huge deal to bring someone in who has some experience and does know what's going on that front. And I think it's pretty cool to see that he'll get the opportunity to help with the organization when it comes to finding funding, when it comes to finding sponsorship, and help them when it comes to free agency for their organization in the MLB going forward into the next couple of years. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Michel Disdier. As it was announced on Monday that Michel Disdier will be driving number 67 for Freedom Racing Enterprises this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. Michel Disdier has made starts previously in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. However, the last time he raced in the Truck Series was back in 2018, I believe, at Las Vegas Motor Speedway when he drove the number 20 truck for Young's Motorsports. He's only made 3 previous starts in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, 2 with SS Greenlight Racing, a 07 machine that Ray Black Jr. made famous in the mid-2010s, and now he's going to have the chance and opportunity to compete in the Truck Series event. Now, to be honest, I don't expect much from Michel because, number 1, he has not raced in the Truck Series in 5 or 6 years, but number 2, the organization he's driving for, Freedom Racing Enterprises, while they've showed a little bit more pace and speed, they're still not one of the fastest and top organizations out there. So I don't expect much from Michel going into the weekend. I think he will have some decent pace and speed, but I don't expect him to set the world on fire. I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for him this weekend, unfortunately, and I think he's going to run in the back of the pack because of the equipment he's in. We'll see how he can do, and we'll see if he can run really, really well this weekend at Homestead, but I'm not expecting much from him because of the equipment that he is in. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Myatt Snider. As it was announced last night that Myatt Snider will be joining DGM Racing on a part-time basis in 2025 as they're driving the number 91 car for the organization this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway and next weekend at Martinsville Speedway. Myatt Snider has been a part-time driver and a journeyman driver over the course of the last couple of years. Of course, back in 2022, he drove full-time for Jordan Anderson Racing. He had a couple really solid runs with the team and organization, but generally struggled throughout the year. He did have one full-time season with RCR back in 2021 where he did pick up a shocking win at Homestead Miami Speedway, but outside of that, he's been kind of a journeyman driver in NASCAR over the last decade or so. This is a decent opportunity, though, because I believe the DGM team has shown some solid pace and speed over the course of the last couple of years, and of course, they do have Jesse Woogie with the team working with them, which again, he's not driving the car, he's just bringing some sponsorship, which would really help the team bring it in. I think Myatt Snider could honestly have some really good runs. I think that this is a driver who's pretty underrated, and I think he's got a chance and opportunity, especially at Homestead, to track track where he's been pretty good at historically throughout his career, I could see him maybe contending for top 15 this weekend. Same thing at Martinsville. He's actually been pretty solid at Martinsville in the past, and I think he'll have a good enough car to definitely be capable to be a little bit more up front than normal. We'll see what Myatt Snider can do. We'll see if he can run really, really well, as I think it's a really good chance and opportunity for him to work with the team this weekend and next weekend at Martinsville as well. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Toyota. As it was announced yesterday afternoon that Toyota has officially unveiled its new Toyota Camry body that is going to be seen throughout race in 2025 in the Trans Am Series. And Nitro Motorsports, which has a big association with Toyota in 2025, are going to have two drivers running the Trans Am weekend. It is going to be Tyler Gonzalez, one of the drivers in the development program who's made a lot of success in the Mazda MX-5 Cup Series, and Thomas Annunziata, who's making a lot of starts this year for the Cope family racing team in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. These are two drivers who've had some success in Mazda MX-5 Cup, and both two drivers, I believe, also who've had success also in the Trans Am Series, as well as I believe Thomas Annunziata has won a couple TA2 races as well. I gotta say, the Camry body looks really, really solid, and I think it looks absolutely incredible. And I think the new gen body they've got looks good. I'd have to think that body down the road is going to be used in the NASCAR Cup Series and maybe even Xfinity, even though they've got the Super currently in the NASCAR Xfinity Series right now. But I gotta say, I think it's a really big deal that Toyota is unveiling the new bodies. We still don't know what the future of Chevy is currently at the moment. It sounds like the Camaro is the plans right now for that. But it's kind of crazy that we've had two generations of Toyotas come out in the last 6 or 7 years, it seems like. Meanwhile, for Camaros, they still don't have a new body style currently at the moment. We're going to have to kind of wait and see what that new body style is going to be down the road. But I think it's a pretty big deal that they've got the new body style, and I think it actually does look pretty solid, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Ross Chastain. As it was confirmed yesterday that Ross Chastain will be driving the number 44 truck for Nice Motorsports this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. This will be the first, I believe, about 4 or 5 truck starts he has scheduled, of course, for the 2025 year. Now, originally he was going to be supposed to drive the number 41 truck for, I believe, this weekend at Homestead, but because of funding issues for Christian Rose, which we still don't know currently at the moment if Christian Rose is going to be part of this organization at all for 2025, that's why he's driving the 44 truck this weekend. Now, going into the weekend, Ross Chastain is going to be one of the favorites on Friday. Number one, Ross Chastain, every time he competes in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, he's always a major threat to go to victory lane. I believe that Ross will have a good enough truck to contend for the win. However, he's not the favorite as you got Kyle Larson in the field. Kyle Larson is a favorite. He's going to be the guy you're going to have to beat this weekend, as I think the pace and speed is going to be there for Kyle Larson as he's looking to become the first driver to sweep, I believe, a weekend ever at Homestead Miami Speedway, because no one's ever won the truck race in the same weekend, the Xfinity race in the same weekend, and the Cup race. But I think Ross has a decent chance. He's not running the Xfinity race this weekend, so he can't go for the sweep. But I think Ross will definitely have a good opportunity here to go to victory lane. It's a great car nonetheless, and I think a truck nonetheless. Nice has shown some good pace and speed at times to start the year, and I believe that Ross Chastain will have a solid chance and a good opportunity to definitely go to victory lane for sure this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Australian Grand Prix TV ratings. And to be honest, they're really, really good. As it was reported by Adam Stern last night, that ESPN got 1.106 million viewers for the season opener in Australia. That is actually up, I believe, from the season opener, I believe, last year, 2024 in Bahrain, where I believe the race got a little under 1 million viewers, and it was up basically double from the Australian Grand Prix in 2024, which had 594,000 viewers. But keep in mind, Australia was not the first race of the year last year. It was the third race of 2024. This race had basically happened at midnight, Eastern Standard Time, and on the East Coast. The fact it had over 1 million people tuned in to the event, it actually beat the Xfinity Series, which had just a little over 1 million viewers, though we're going to talk about CW in the future with some of their network issues, especially with the app not being available. But I got to say, I think this is a really, really big deal for Formula One, because even though I think Formula One has been stagnant in the U.S. over the last year or so, I think it's still a pretty big deal that they are still getting over 1 million people in the United States. And I do think, in a sense, Formula One still has a really big chance to grow, but especially because there's a lot of interest in the season. You've got a lot of new rookies. I think also there's more people tuning in because you've got the Cadillac team coming in 2026. And I think the race also itself was very compelling and very, very interesting, which I think made a lot of people want to tune in because of that alone. I think having over 1 million people tune into a race at night, especially if this wasn't a race that happened at like 10 in the morning or something like that, or 9 Eastern Standard Time. This race happened at a pretty late time, and to have over 1 million people tune in, I think is phenomenal and absolutely incredible. Pretty happy to see the Australian Grand Prix have some big ratings and especially some big viewership, and it beat the Xfinity Series, which is kind of crazy. Xfinity almost beat it, but at the same token, same time, it's exciting to see that Formula One still is having a pretty big presence in the United States currently at this moment. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Josh Berry. Now, Josh Berry, of course, this past weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway picked up his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And Josh Berry did do a little bit of a burnout after the race had concluded, but he didn't do a massive burnout like a lot of drivers have done when they're able to win their first race or when they're able to cross the finish line first. And Josh Berry was asked this question by Bob Pockrass and other reporters in the industry in the media center and was asked, why did you not do a really, really big burnout after you won your first ever race? Because they wanted to see him go ahead and celebrate. The reason he says he did not do a big burnout at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, he did a couple little burnouts, but didn't do a big burnout, is because of the fact that he's a guy who works on his cars, and he respects the people in the engine department, because the people in the engine department, they're not really happy when these drivers go ahead and do these massive burnouts because it's a lot of extra work for them, and it also is respect to people who work on the engines as well. Josh Berry comes from a short track background, a guy who worked on his cars many, many years. Yes, he got a lot of help from Dale Jr., but one thing that Josh Berry did, especially when he was with Junior Motorsports, is he was someone who did work on his cars. He wanted to be there to help the team. I think he's been there helping a little bit with the Wood brothers as well since getting over there. And I think you look at Josh Berry over there at the Wood brothers this year, and I think of how fast he's been to start 2025. But I think for Josh to go there and appreciate everything that the Wood brothers have done for NASCAR as a whole and show the speed he's shown to start the year, it's great to see because I think his team's been off to a solid start. And I think it show respect to the people who built the cars. I think that's also really phenomenal as well. So to me, I think it's really a nice gesture from Josh Berry to show respect to the engine department, to show respect to the people who do work on the cars. And I think it's nice to see him show respect to those individuals. And I think that, again, like I said, it wasn't like he didn't do any burnout. He did a little burnout, but it wasn't one of those big, massive burnouts that we have seen in the past. So to me, I think that's a big deal of showing signs of respect for sure. And I think it's pretty nice to see him show a nice gesture. And I think it's going to be a big season for Josh. He's had a really good start to 2025, multiple top fives, and has shown really good speed. We'll see what Josh Berry can do throughout the remainder of the year. But I think it was a really nice gesture from Josh Berry to go ahead and do that and show respect to the team, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Jockey. As it was announced last night that Jockey will sponsor Shane Van Gisbergen for this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. Jockey, of course, has had a partnership with Trackhouse Racing since 2022. They sponsor Ross Chastain and select races over the course of the last couple of years, and they've also sponsored Daniel Suarez as well over the course of the last couple of years. And they continue that partnership with Shane Van Gisbergen for the season. I was originally going to do a video on this channel, but I did not get to do a video on this because I gotta say, this is the first new sponsor SVG has had since I believe the start of the season. Of course, he did pick up Red Bull to sponsor for 5 races, and they did sponsor him at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, but that was announced before the season even began. And then, of course, you have WeatherTech, which is sponsoring SVG and Connor Zilisch for select races throughout the season, which I believe WeatherTech is going to sponsor SVG more than Connor Zilisch this year. But Jockey's been part of the Trackhouse branding. And again, the car looks really, really good. Shane Van Gisbergen has been off to a really up and down start to 2025. He, of course, did get a top 10 at COTA where he was up front contending for the win. But the car was not that good on the long run, was not that good on the short run, and was absolutely terrible on the restarts. That's why he struggled at the race at the end, even though he was able to charge his way up to 6th position by the end of the race. But the last couple weeks have not gone that well. He got caught up in a wreck at Phoenix. He had 3 tire failures at Las Vegas, and there just wasn't that same pace and speed that I think some of us thought we were going to see transpire from Xfinity. But at same time, we should not have expected SVG to go into 2025 and be extremely impressive on the ovals. We knew it was going to take time for him to get really solid and really strong on the ovals. I think he will eventually get there at that point where he will get it figured out, but I still think there's a lot of work that needs to be done for him to be really good and really fast on the oval type of tracks, because I think that's the area that he's going to be struggling at, because we know he's going to be good at the road courses, but it's going to take some time for him to get really, really good on the ovals. But I think the scheme looks really, really good, and it's nice to see that Shane Van Gisbergen does have a new sponsor. I believe Wendy's is going to sponsor him for a couple races this year as well, if I'm not mistaken, from what I've heard. So we'll see when that does get formally announced. But I think it's awesome that he does have a new sponsor for the weekend. And I got to say, the car does look really awesome and really great overall, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the Las Vegas TV ratings from this past weekend. And honestly, they're very, very good. As reported by Fox and Adam Stern yesterday, FS1 got a 1.48 rating and 3.011 million viewers for Sunday's Pennzoil 400, the best for a NASCAR event on cable since Spring Darlington in 2021, when that race had over 3 million viewers. That is a really, really big deal. Now, of course, the race from last year is not comparable. Number one, the race was on main Fox in 2024. But number two, the course was race number 3 of the season. So it was a couple weeks earlier, and usually ratings in the earlier portion of the year are a little bit better than when we get a little bit farther in the season, because less people tune in as the year progresses and goes on. I think this is a really, really, really big deal for a lot of reasons. Number one, to be the most watched cable race in 4 years is a really big deal, because we know a lot of people are cutting the cord and they're cutting watching races on cable. They're either going to illegal streams, it seems like, or they're going and watching on MRN. They're not tuning into those races like they're tuning in on Fox. Now, obviously, Las Vegas is a major key net part of the United States, and it has a lot of people from the Las Vegas area that tune in. It's a big in the demographic when it comes to ratings and all that stuff. But to have 3 million people tune in to a cable race, again, is really phenomenal and absolutely huge. And I'm glad to see that the race had over 3 million viewers. And also the race itself was really, really good too. More people tuning in, the better it is for the sport. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about the future of the sport with the lawsuit going on, which we're going to talk about here in just a short little bit. But I think seeing the ratings up is a really, really big deal for sure. And I think it's exciting to see nonetheless. We want to see more people tune into the sport. We want to see the sport grow. I think in some areas it is definitely growing, but I think it's a really awesome story to see that Las Vegas is continuing to grow in the ratings department in that area, in that front. And I think it's exciting to see a race have over 3 million viewers. We don't usually see ratings this big in cable, so it's a really, really big deal. And I'm excited to see that the Las Vegas TV ratings are out. And I think they're really good. And I think overall for motorsports, seems like motorsports interest is going up. We saw it with Formula One in the interest there. And I think it's a pretty big deal for sure, nonetheless, to see that the Las Vegas TV ratings are finally out for the weekend. And I think it's good to see the ratings be as good as they are, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead and on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the Charlotte test from this past week. Now, currently at the moment, we are on day number 2 of the tire test at Charlotte Motor Speedway. You've got 2 series, of course, testing. You've got the Cup Series with Chase Briscoe, William Byron, and Ryan Blaney, I believe. And for the Xfinity Series, I believe you have Sheldon Creed, Austin Hill, and Eric Almirola testing at Charlotte Motor Speedway. They are all testing a softer compound, for what I remember correctly. And they had both of the cars on the track at the same time. And you can see from the videos that Christian Espinoza uploaded, and you can actually see that the Xfinity Series car is a little bit quicker than the Cup Series car, which is a little bit concerning that an Xfinity Series car, the secondary series, is basically faster than a Cup Series car currently at the moment. Now, granted, the Cup cars, I believe, were a little bit faster in the qualifying trim than they were in race trim, but it's kind of crazy to see that the Cup car is slower than the Xfinity Series car, even though I believe the Cup Series has a little more horsepower than the Xfinity Series car does currently at the moment. I do think that's kind of crazy, but also you could just see, and what's so cool about this too, is you got to see both series on the track at the same time. One thing that I propose, and other people have proposed as well, is having multi-class racing. I think it'd be really phenomenal if we could see multi-class racing, where we see both series on the track at the same time, where we get to see the Cup cars go out there. People have suggested like doing a version of the Rolex 24 or a version of IMSA racing. I think that'd be really awesome, where you have like teams go out there, like you have a Hendrick team, you've got like a Richard Olds Racing Cup, Eric's Xfinity Series team. You've got all these series out there once, and you could put all the teams out there at the same time and compete against each other. I think a multi-class race is something that NASCAR should be looking at down the road, and I think it would draw a lot of attention if something like that could end up happening. But to me, I think it's a really cool to see this, and there's probably going to be some interesting comments from the test. Sound like the drivers were really pleased with the softer tire, and they also, a lot of them praised the racing as well on the intermediate tracks as well, especially the next-gen drivers who race in the next-gen car currently at the moment. To me, I think that's what needs to be talked about here, and I think it's cool nonetheless to see that people are testing a tire, and I think it's nice to see that both series got the chance and opportunity to be on the track at the same time. Pretty exciting stuff, to be honest with you. Now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kevin Harvick. Now, Kevin Harvick, of course, every single week has this podcast called the Happy Harvick Podcast. And Kevin Harvick, over the course of the last couple weeks, has been a little more opinionated than he's been in recent weeks and spoke a lot about horsepower on this most recent podcast. And it comes from after reactions to what happened during qualifying for the Cup race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And Kevin Harvick is not a massive fan of the cars being wide open, and he basically says that he wants to see more horsepower on the next-gen cars. And he's been calling it for about the last year or so, and been calling it since he even drove the car a couple years ago. But Kevin Harvick has been one of the people that's been very outspoken about adding horsepower to the next-gen cars. I 100% agree with Kevin Harvick here. There needs to be more horsepower in the next-gen cars. Now, obviously, I think if you increase the horsepower, maybe for the intermediate racing, it may make the racing worse, because I think the intermediate racing has actually been very, very good in the next-gen car, because when they actually increased the horsepower from 550 to 670, it really improved the racing on the intermediates, and I think the racing on intermediates has been very, very good. But yes, I want to see more horsepower. I love to see these cars have 800 to 900 horsepower at these types of tracks. I think these cars would be ripping. We go back to 2014 when they were ripping. They had 850 or 900 horsepower, I'm pretty sure. And those cars are ripping around the track. They were setting record speeds. They were going like 210 miles an hour at Michigan, I'm pretty sure. It was like dangerous for some people, sure. But I think the racing product was actually really good on those types of tracks. And the laps were insane. They were setting like record speeds of like 35-second laps in Michigan, I'm pretty sure. It was insane laps back then. And I think if you had extra horsepower in the cars, I think it would actually make the racing a lot better, maybe at those types of tracks, but I'm not even entirely sure on that front. But I want more horsepower. I've been calling it for a long time because I really want to see more horsepower on the short tracks. Well, I think the short track racing, especially with the tire having a lot of fall off now, I think the racing in those types of tracks has actually gotten a lot better with the tire fall off. I still think there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the next-gen car, and I think the easiest thing you could do to maybe fix some of the other issues that it has with the aerodynamics, among other things, is adding more horsepower. If you add more horsepower, you're going to have more off-throttle time, and I think it's going to make the racing a lot better. So yes, I want to see more horsepower in the next-gen car. I really hope we do get to see that down the road. NASCAR says they're not planning to, which I don't understand why they don't want to at this point. So I think if NASCAR wanted to add more horsepower, they should, because I think the racing product actually would end up getting a lot better, and I think it would be more fun for the fans that are watching the sport overall. I really hope it does happen where we get to see more horsepower on the next-gen cars going forward, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Artie Kempner. As it was announced and reported on Monday night from The Athletic for the MLB that it looks like Artie Kempner is looking to be leaving Fox Sports at the end of 2025, and it looks like he will be headed to ESPN as ESPN steps up for their first Super Bowl in 2027. This is a massive deal because Artie Kempner has been the director for Fox's NASCAR coverage since the beginning, going all the way back to 2001. And while Artie Kempner was really good when he started and did a really good job on broadcasting for about the first 10 to 15 years, he's been behind a lot of bad decisions over there at Fox, especially when it comes to the race direction, among other things. He's been there for way too long. And anytime you criticize Artie Kempner on something, he kind of shrugs it off and just says it's us being haters when we're just fans that have been really frustrated with the broadcast. I think many of you have seen my frustrations and many other YouTubers and other people on social media's frustration with how bad the Fox broadcasts have gotten. And I think they've been absolutely terrible over the course of the last few years. years. I think they've gotten really bad since COVID. They were starting to decline around 2014 to 2016, around that area when DW was getting older, Larry McReynolds left the booth, and Jeff Gordon came in. But I think even 2014, 2015, they still had solid broadcasts, but they weren't that great. But I think they've gotten really, really bad. And Fox has been the canary in the coal mine when it comes to the broadcasting for at least a little bit now. And I think they've absolutely been a joke and horrendous in recent years. And you look at how bad the Coda finish was. My God almighty. You look at how bad the broadcasting was there. Literally, they're side by side for the lead between Christopher Bell and Kyle Busch. And they literally cut to the grandstands. They will cut their children so much. And Artie Kempner is a person behind that. And I'm worried for ESPN because if he's good with ESPN, then I think that's going to make fans very, very upset. Because Artie Kempner was good back in the day, but he hasn't been great. I remember when Fox used to be good. And I'm hoping that whoever they bring in to replace Artie Kempner in 2026, I hope they're good. But one of my worries is that it's not just an Artie Kempner issue, and it's more of a Fox issue currently at the moment. I think a lot of the issues going on right now over at Fox are Fox issues. It's not just the NASCAR broadcast or the NASCAR coverage that has really suffered. The NFL coverage has suffered in recent years. I think that the MLB coverage has been bad for Fox. I think Fox has a lot of really bad issues on their own currently at the moment right now, and their broadcast quality has suffered. I didn't watch the World Series this year, but from what I remember, people that are fans of MLB who watch the World Series every year, they weren't biggest fans of the overall coverage. And there still weren't as bad as NASCAR's coverage has been, but good Lord Almighty, and there's been some bad decisions made in recent years too, like putting Jamie Little in the booth. I hope whoever is the race director comes in can do a good job. Or what I'm hoping is in 2026, NASCAR can take control of the production. It would cost Fox a lot less money, and I think putting the races on broadcast more, which is what NASCAR should be doing right now, I think that if NASCAR took control of the production, I think the quality of the broadcast would actually improve drastically at the moment. So I really hope whoever they bring in for the future, whoever they decide to bring in, is good, but I really hope in 2026 we get to see better broadcast quality because the broadcasts have been bad. I think it's a good step to see that Artie Kempner's going away. I know some will disagree, but Artie Kempner's been behind a lot of the really bad and awful production in recent years, and I really hope it can improve. But to be honest with you, I don't know if Artie Kempner leaving is going to solve all the problems. It might even create more problems for Fox, and the broadcast might even end up being worse down the road, but I hope we do see improved broadcasts with Artie Kempner being gone, to be honest with you, because I think the Fox broadcasts have not been that good. Now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Michael Jordan. Now currently, of course, at the moment, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports are suing NASCAR, and NASCAR has filed a countersuit against Curtis Polk and 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. And NASCAR is thinking that Michael Jordan would be very happy or basically would not be mad about what is going on. Well, Michael Jordan, in a most recent article that came out with Jenna Fryer, has actually responded to the countersuit against Curtis Polk in 2311 and Front Row Motorsports, and he is not very happy about the situation going on at the moment. As he says, Curtis, as their spokesperson for Michael Jordan says, Curtis Polk and Michael Jordan stand united. His perspective is if you're coming after Curtis, you're coming after him. It's personal. Michael Jordan said the famous line, it's personal. Michael Jordan obviously is not very happy about NASCAR countersuing against Curtis Polk and 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. Now, of course, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports are suing NASCAR on antitrust claims. And the countersuit was filed that 2311 and Front Row Motorsports, they're basically going against it. Now, Michael Jordan also said that he is not planning to be at any NASCAR Cup Series races, it sounds like currently at the moment, until when we get to the playoffs at the end of the year. And also, one person who came to support of Michael Jordan and 2311 Front Row that many probably wouldn't expect is Richard Childress. Richard Childress basically said in this most recent article from Jenna Fryer by saying he did what many of us have done. He didn't do anything different than what most of us are doing in support of Curtis Polk. And Richard Childress has been also outspoken about the charter situation where he basically said they basically called NASCAR somewhat a communist regime. He revealed a lot of it on the Dale Jr. download not too long ago and basically called NASCAR out on how bad the terms came in regards to the charter agreement. It is not a good look for NASCAR that Michael Jordan, who is one of the most influential figures in sports ever, is up against you and is not very happy. And he's been going to a lot of races over the last year, so he was at a lot of races in 2024. He was there when Tyler Reddick won at Talladega. I believe he was there at Homestead Miami Speedway when Tyler Reddick won, which we're going back there this weekend. He's been at a lot of races until now. Because if you don't make Michael Jordan happy, that's not a good thing for NASCAR. And regardless of what happens in this situation with the lawsuit, whether it is that NASCAR ends up winning the lawsuit or losing the lawsuit, it's going to be a bad look for the sport as a whole. Because if 23XI Racing and Farm Motorsports, they lose their original lawsuit, which it doesn't sound like that they are winning currently at the moment right now, but if they do somehow win the lawsuit, I think 23XI Racing Farm Motorsports' future is going to be uncertain. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of talk, and even Rich Schultz brought this up in the article as well, about NASCAR maybe getting rid of the charter system altogether, which multiple team owners basically said that NASCAR, you can't just go ahead and remove the charter system because we have 7-year agreements with you. But what some other team owners said in this article is that NASCAR is basically wanting the teams to go ahead and tell 23XI Front Row to drop the original lawsuit so that we can continue having basically the charter agreement with the current 13 teams that signed. But there are team owners that basically were not very happy about the charter agreement being signed. Rick Hendrick basically said he was tired of being asked about it and was tired of all this stuff and just wanted to get it done and over with. A guy who's been in the sport for 40 years, by the way, since 1984, was tired of all this stuff in regards to NASCAR. I think for NASCAR, they countersued Curtis Polk because of the fact that they know that they're not winning currently at the moment right now. And they're trying to basically countersue on their front. Now, this countersuit, I believe, is going to be going on at the same time as the lawsuit is going on at the moment. So both of them are going to be happening pretty much on the same day of the court dates, which will be taking place on December 9th. Now, could it get pushed back? It's certainly possible. The fact that NASCAR countersuit tells you they're going to be looking to push it back. To me, when it comes to the lawsuit right now, I think for Michael Jordan, 20-11, they have a strong case to win here currently at the moment right now. And I think that it's very likely they're going to win. But you don't want to make Michael Jordan mad and upset. And when you piss off Michael Jordan, you piss off a lot of fans of the 20-11 racing team. You piss off a lot of your partners. And we've got partners that had left the sport. Now, obviously, we've got the appeal coming up really soon in regards to the stuff, in regards to the preliminary injunction, which I don't think that NASCAR is going to win. I think they're going to lose the preliminary injunction case, that being NASCAR, or for their appeal. I think that 20-11 are going to keep their charters for the remainder of the year. It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the stuff plays out in regards to the lawsuit going forward. But as of right now, I think it's very unlikely that they are going to win the lawsuit, in my honest opinion, that being NASCAR. And I think that's why they're countersuing, that being NASCAR, currently at this moment. Because obviously the preliminary injunction for Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, and of course Riley Herbst, Noah Gragson, Zane Smith, Todd Gillen, all those guys have charters. And Corey Heim's got to deal with 23-11. They basically are all looking to keep their charters so they don't have to be looking for new rides throughout the 2025 season. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the first of two major stories in today's episode as we're talking about Denny Hamlin. Now, we kind of teed this on the channel over the course of the last couple of days, and many of you have seen it on the channel yesterday. But it was officially confirmed last night that Denny Hamlin has picked up a new sponsor for the majority of the rest of the 2025 season. It was announced that Progressive Insurance is going to sponsor Denny Hamlin for 18 races in 2025, including this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. Some of the race that Denny Hamlin will be sponsored, I believe the championship race at Phoenix, of course at Worldwide Technology Raceway, my home track, Pocono was announced. I believe that Nashville was announced as well. Mexico City was not announced, by the way. But there are a lot of dates like the Brickyard 400 and other big dates have been announced for Denny Hamlin to be sponsored. Progressive Insurance was the fourth biggest spender of 2024 in NASCAR. It became reported over the weekend that Progressive was likely going to be sponsoring a driver in the NASCAR Cup Series and a team, and Joe Gibbs Racing was the favorite. And the only driver that made sense at the time was Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin, of course, lost a couple big brands at the end of 2024. FedEx left Joe Gibbs Racing at the end of 2024 after being with the team since around 2004 and 2005. And Mayoff Tire, which also sponsored Denny Hamlin for a lot of races last year, they left at the end of last year. I think some of that doing with the lawsuit going on, unfortunately. But Joe Gibbs Racing, they like to always find the big brands, the big sponsors. And with Progressive Insurance being the only one of the top five not being involved, they probably asked them to get involved, which they absolutely did. I gotta say also, the car looks really, really good. But for Denny Hamlin, this is major for a lot of reasons. Number one, it fills that big sponsorship gap that Denny Hamlin has been looking for. Number two, it sells out the sponsorship that Denny Hamlin is going to need for this year. When FedEx and Mayoff Tire left, that was a major, major story that was developing on the background because a lot of people were thinking if Denny Hamlin doesn't have a big sponsor, could he leave the team? Many people were comparing it to the situation that had happened with Kyle Busch a couple years ago when M&M's left at the end of 2022. They announced at the end of 2021 they were going to be leaving when M&M's left. And then, of course, Kyle Busch ends up leaving the team at the end of 2022 and going over to Richard Childress Racing. And many people were really, really concerned that Denny Hamlin was not going to be able to find a new sponsor for the program for this year. Now, one thing to note, I believe it's only a one-year deal for Denny Hamlin with Progressive. They could come back in 2026, but Progressive is only signed right now for 2025. So those free agency rumors may still come up for Denny Hamlin this year. However, I think that very likely will not be the case. I think the fact that Denny Hamlin has picked up a major sponsor is going to quiet a lot of those rumors going around with Denny Hamlin because we talk about Denny Hamlin's age. Denny Hamlin is 44 years old. It will be 45 at the end of the season. Denny Hamlin is the oldest full-time NASCAR Cup Series driver currently at the moment. And Denny Hamlin does not have a lot of chances remaining in his career to probably go out there and win a championship. He's getting up there in age, and he's getting a lot older. And I think Denny Hamlin's got a lot of other priorities. Running 23XI Racing. He's got a family to raise. He's got a lot of stuff going on currently at the moment right now. But I think for Denny Hamlin, it is a big deal to pick up a big sponsor because I think it's going to quiet those rumors at least for the next couple of years. And you look at Toyota's pipeline. There's really no one, in my opinion, that's ready in the lower Toyota pipeline that is ready to replace Denny Hamlin. You'd have to go after a big free agent. Now, Joe Gibbs Racing could try to pick up Kyle Busch again, which I predicted at the beginning of the year, but I don't think that's happening at this point right now. I don't think they are going to be coming in and picking up Kyle Busch right now. So you look at Toyota's pipeline. William Sawash, nowhere close to being ready. Brandon Jones, as much as it'd be cool to see Brandon Jones in a Cup car, I don't think Brandon Jones should be in a Cup car personally because he hasn't been that good in Xfinity in recent years. Taylor Gray's only, 19, turns 20 in a couple weeks. I don't think he's ready in any way, shape, or form. Of course, you do have other drivers like Brent Cruz, but Brent Cruz is only 16. He will turn 17 this year, but he's still way too young. You got Gio Rogerio, who's making starts in the ARCA car, but Gio Rogerio, I don't think is ready for Cup. So you don't really have anybody in the Toyota stable right now that I think is ready to take Denny Hamlin's seat. So it made a lot of sense for Denny Hamlin to stick around at least for a couple years, and I think Hamlin will be back next year more than likely with the team. So I thought we'd see him retire, but it seems like we're not going to have a big retirement at the end of the year. But going back to picking up the sponsorship of Progressive, it's a really big deal for the team, and I think it's really exciting to see that Progressive Insurance will be working with this organization in 2025. They're only sponsoring Denny Hamlin, and I think it's pretty massive to see that a big company like Progressive Insurance is working with the team in 2025. Again, the car looks really awesome. It looks really, really great. And I think it's exciting to see that Denny Hamlin has a big sponsor after losing a couple big sponsors at the end of last year. I think it's going to be a nice-looking car that is going to definitely be out on the racetrack this year. And again, it's a pretty big deal that Progressive Insurance will sponsor Denny Hamlin for the remainder of 2025. Excited to see this car out on the racetrack this year. And now we're going to jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about Junior Motorsports once again. Now, there was a report that came out a couple days ago from Adam Stern that Travelers Whiskey wants to continue advertising to NASCAR's fan base after the Daytona 500 and is in talks about how to do so. Continuing on as reported by Adam Stern, I think we're looking at options. We've seen enough positive fan response from NASCAR and the fans to show we could do this. And according to Adam Stern as well, Justin Allgaier's merchandise from the Daytona 500, they were the number one merchandise seller, I believe, so far in 2025. Now, from what people said that went to Daytona 500 like Braycar, he said he saw a lot of number 40 Traveler Whiskey cars. Now, Travelers Whiskey, of course, sponsored Justin Allgaier in the Daytona 500 with Junior Motorsports' first ever start in the NASCAR Cup Series with the number 40, and they were able to make the Daytona 500 and actually finish inside the top 10. Now, why are we talking about this story? Well, this actually leads to Junior Motorsports. And I think that there is a very realistic chance and possibility that we could see Junior Motorsports partner up with Travelers Whiskey once again to sponsor the team in another race in the NASCAR Cup Series. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of rumors and a lot of speculation on Junior Motorsports' future over the course of the last couple of years. And there has been some talk, and it's picked up in recent times as well, that one, Junior Motorsports could make some more Cup starts at some point in 2025. I'm looking at Talladega in about a month or so from now, considering Junior Motorsports had some success at Daytona. And I think, especially with the field not being as many cars are going to be there as we saw at Daytona, I think that would be the perfect race to get back out on the track. But number two, we could see Travers Whiskey get involved with Junior Motorsports when they go ahead and maybe perhaps purchase a charter. Dale Jr. has said publicly that he wouldn't want to outright purchase the charter himself. Now, charters, there's a lot of uncertainty on the charter system currently at the moment, and it's unknown right now if even the charter system is going to continue past 2025 with all the lawsuit stuff going on currently at the moment. But I think very likely the charter system is going to stick around. So at that point, Junior Motorsports, they could end up finding their way into the NASCAR Cup Series full-time in 2026, because Junior has said more than ever that there's a really good chance we could end up seeing it. And I think many of his fans, like myself, really would love to see a big team like Junior Motorsports make their jump into the NASCAR foray. Now, let's say Junior Motorsports does end up having a full-time Cup program in 2026. What drivers could they end up picking up? Well, Josh Berry would be one I'd be looking at, unless, of course, signed a multi-year deal with the Wood Brothers. I know Josh has said recently that if Dale had offered him another chance and opportunity to join up with the Cup team, he would definitely take it. But I think, especially after winning this past weekend at Vegas, I don't see Josh Berry leaving the Wood Brothers, at least for the next couple of years. I think he's going to stick around with the team. I think he's only got a one-year deal, but I think he'll be sticking around with the Wood Brothers next year. I don't think maybe Justin Allgaier goes full-time with JRM and Xfinity. That would make a lot of sense. He's got a win to start the year, and I think getting another opportunity in Cup full-time would be good. He did really good in the 5-car at the Coke 600 as well last year. He finished inside the top 15, and that's with little to no experience in the next-gen car. Maybe move up Connor Zilisch, and one of my theories is that, and this is one of the little theory that I've kind of had, is what if Junior Motorsports purchases their way into the number 99 car for Trackhouse Racing? Daniel Suarez, yes, he had a really good run this past weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. However, there's a lot of rumors and chatter going on right now that there is a very realistic chance that Daniel Suarez is in his final season with Trackhouse Racing in 2025. I have a little bit of a theory that Connor Zilisch does go up full-time to the NASCAR Cup Series in 2026. I know there's also rumors about Dodge coming back, so probably be only like a one-year deal perhaps, and then Junior Motorsports have to maybe go find something else if Trackhouse switches manufacturers. But I think that they go up next year, and Junior puts partnership in the number 99 car. Now, what would this mean for Daniel Suarez? He'd probably be looking for a seat. I'm thinking the 10 car for Kaulig Racing is the most likely option at this point, because Daniel Suarez, I think he deserves to still be in the Cup Series. Yes, I know Daniel Suarez has really, really struggled, even though he has had some good runs with the team. But I think Suarez being with Kaulig, plus Ty Norris is over there right now, I think Ty Norris could absolutely convince him. Plus, Daniel Suarez brings sponsorship and funding to the table from Freeway Insurance and a couple other companies as well that are close to him, like Coca-Cola, that I think would be willing to sponsor him over there, because you're not getting rid of Shane Van Gisbergen, and you're certainly not getting rid of Ross Chastain. The other reason I have this theory going on at the moment is because of the partnership that Trackhouse is having in their Xfinity program. Ross Chastain's making a couple more starts with the team this year. He's got 4 more starts scheduled in the number 9 car, which has 2 Trackhouse drivers. And also Shane Van Gisbergen is making 4 starts in the number 9 car this year as well. We know the team is going to be very, very competitive. We know they're going to be fast in Xfinity. And we know that the partnership would make a lot of sense as well. To me, most likely what is going to end up happening is that if Junior Motorsports is to go Cup racing in 2026, I think that's a partnership you go with. Now, unless, of course, Kyle Busch somehow goes over to Trackhouse Racing, which is certainly possible at this point. Don't lean toward Kyle Busch going over to Spire if he doesn't stick around with RCR. Now, if RCR continues performing, I think RCR is the most likely option. Or if you get Kyle Busch maybe at Junior Motorsports, that would be a big deal. They'd be kind of like full circle after what happened in 2008. But to me, at this particular moment in point, I think that there is definitely a really good chance that we are going to see Junior Motorsports in the NASCAR Cup Series. I think it's very realistic at this point. I don't think it's out of the realm possibility, because I know they're interested. I know they've shown interest, but they don't want to outright buy a charter. buying to the number 99 car, which of course the charters are worth about $20 million right now, it seems like. So if it's like $10 million perhaps, and you get Chris Stapleton involved, that's a little bit less money you have to spend. And instead of spending like $20 or $30 million, you're spending like maybe $5 to $10 million. But I think the fact that Travelers Whiskey wants to do more stuff in Cup, this could lead to them making more starts in 2025, and it could lead to Junior Motorsports going full-time in 2026. This is going to be a big story that we're going to be following throughout the year because it is a big deal. We all want to see Junior Motorsports make that transition up to the NASCAR Cup Series. And I think the chances are becoming more and more likely of that happening at this time. Again, we'll see what happens for 2026, but again, I think it's very realistic that we are going to see Junior Motorsports maybe make their way and their foray into NASCAR Cup Series competition in the not-so-distant future. We'll see what happens in regards to that, but it looks like there's a chance of that definitely happening for sure very, very soon. So, that is going to be today's long NASCAR news and motorsports news episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so that if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. You think Junior Motorsports will jump up the Cup in 2026? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Denny Hamlin picking up a big sponsor for the remainder of 2025? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. There's going to be a couple more videos dropping today on the channel. Most likely, we are going to have the Xfinity Series race picks dropping later today. Then tomorrow on the channel, we are going to have the Cup Series race picks for Homestead, and we also have the paint skin video. And then on Friday, we should have a NASCAR news video dropping, and we also will have some more content dropping as well around the Truck Series race. Of course, then Saturday, we'll have the Xfinity reactions, the Cup qualifying, and basically do the Xfinity review as well. And then, of course, on Sunday, we will have the Cup review. We'll have the starting lineup video and maybe a Shane Van Gisbergen's video as well. And then Monday, we should have a NASCAR news video dropping. And then, of course, we're going to Martinsville, which we got a triple header that weekend, which is going to be exciting and fun. We got content coming up, Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Cards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, other people like Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Cleese Farley, Matt Benedetto, Frankie Muniz, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed, and the lawsuit as well. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.